Okay, guys, it's... Oh. Hey, guys. Let's peek in a little bit. Move it down a little bit. Okay, hey, guys, this is Adrie Theron for the last panel of Final Fantasy Fan Fest, Day 2.
Fan Festival. Yeah. Give me that energy. I need it.
He looks
Been drinking Red
tired.
Bulls backstage. It's the whole thing. Thank you all so much for being here. Everyone on the live stream. We have our final presentation of the day, speaking the language of creation. It's going to be a fun one. We have Kate and Koji Fox here, so please help me welcome to the stage Kate Swinar and Michael Christopher Koji Fox.
Yay, Koji! Woo! Woo!
All right, guys. Have a good panel. See you later.
It's dinner time for me,
I'm
guys.
on this one.
Yeah, you are.
I forgot.
Sit in your chair.
Sit, Matt.
He looks like he wants to go to bed, to be honest.
All right, we are ready to get started.
Okay, so hello, I am Kate Swinner. I am the English localization lead on FF14.
Yeah.
Woot! Woot! Woo, Kate! We love Kate.
I might as well actually just bring up the slide that says that. Look, visual aids. It's brilliant. Okay.
Yes.
We came prepared.
This is what I told you about how if I have the script in front of me, it's actually worse because I'm like,
Easy.
What am I doing? Okay. So just a little bit about who I am. I actually joined on FF14 as a QA tester during the Realm Reborn beta when we were testing that. And then did that through Heavensward. I left for a couple of years to improve my translation and interpreting skills. And then I came back as a part of the translation team on 4.x. Since about like the middle of Shadowbringers, I have taken over Koji's former role as like giant lore nerd on the English side. And I am one of two English leads on the project, the other being Paul Chandler. Maybe you'll see him someday, we'll see.
Maybe.
He's very elusive.
Yes. So all that being the case, I do many things. I do a little bit of quest translation, though not as much as I used to, but my first quest translations that I did were the Namazu Beast Tribe quests. And now that I'm doing a little bit less of the more prominent translation work, I've also gone back to my roots and started doing more tribal quests. So I've recently done the Omicrons and the Loporits.
Yeah. Oh, sweetness. Didn't do Loporits. Skipped the cutscenes, but I did pay attention to Omicrons.
These days, as lead, I do a lot of editing on other people's quests. So for instance, recently, like Pandemonium, Mount Rokon. I also, for the main scenario, I primarily do voice recording, script supervision. And then in the background, I am doing all of the lore stuff, which means I'm constantly talking with the Japanese lore team so we can decide what pretty much literally everything in the game is named. You might not notice this stuff so much, but there's a lot of it. Like if you're punching something, be like, you are only one of many. I do not fear you. So up here with me today, we have Koji, who it kind of seems like you know for some reason, but Koji...
We don't know who Koji is. He's just, big goober that's been around forever.
Is there anything you want to tell these people about yourself?
Well, I mean, there's a lot.
We already know all about Koji.
This is their first fan fest. I've been, talking to a lot of people, and they're like, "This is my first fan fest. I started playing a year ago." So, for those of you who do not know who I am,
fair.
My name is Koji Fox. It all kind of began around here. It 1.0. 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, just trying to put in as many bad puns as possible.
Succeeded.
Yeah. And then around right before 5.0 was released, Yoshi P came to me and was like, I got something for you. I need you to kind of slide over. And I got the opportunity to work on another game. And pretty much nothing's changed.
Oh, a giant meme
Yes.
lord.
10 years. You'd think I would have grown up. No.
They should have
Fucking
never
ball.
given you a mature title.
No. I mean, that's the thing, you know, the instant that I heard, you know, the first day, Yoshipi's like, oh, and the rating we're aiming
Excuse
for
me?
is M. I'm like, okay, I got this. But yeah, I've worked, other than Final Fantasy 14 and 16, I've also worked on Final Fantasy 11. And also, there is one game that I have to mention every single FanFest. Code Age Commanders. That says COD Age. No, is it Code Age Commanders? Okay, good.
It's okay.
Yes. And so any of the Square Enix producers and directors that are out here today, it's time to do a remake. Code Age Commanders needs to be released. Yes. All right, that's enough for me. I'm giving this back to you, Kate.
Okay, I mean, I also do have to mention that, like, I asked Koji for his dev art of himself so I could put it in this PowerPoint, and he just sent me a picture of a taco, so that's there.
Well, who doesn't love tacos?
I mean, that's
I
what-
guess.
It took so long to get tacos into FF14. We had to celebrate, you know?
That's right. And now we celebrate with 7.0, taking a bite.
Take a bite.
Yes.
So for today's panel, I admittedly sort of bit off a bit more than I could chew. I thought, oh, I want to tell the fans this, and it seems like they don't know this, and also this, and we should do an activity, oh, and they want to ask questions. So we have a lot of things to go through. We may go very fast. I hope that you will
Really
enjoy
fast? Ooh,
one
really
of
fast.
the things you hear, at least. And at the end, yes, I will do some answers to questions we collected on the forums if we have time. If we end up not having time, we will post those answers on the Lodestone later, so, like, don't freak out. Thank you. All right. Okay. So first I wanted to talk about translating the main scenario of 6.0. As those of you who listened to Yoshi P's presentation about 6.0 before we released it may be aware, the main scenario was much larger than in previous expansions.
Oh, significantly. It was crazy.
So how
Crazy
large?
good.
It turns out that after we translated it, it was about 244,000 words,
Excuse me.
which, if you want an easy comparison, that's a bit more than Crime and Punishment.
Oh my god, Crime and Punishment's an awful book. I had to read that for
I don't
school.
know. I feel like Dostoevsky
It was
should get on
garbage.
Ishikawa-san's level.
Yeah.
And that is a daunting task. Like, I know from your perspective, it takes us a long time to release an expansion. But from our perspective, we have to translate all of this in a very short period of time. About half of this text was part of the voice script, so we also had to prepare it for voice recording and record it much earlier than the rest of the stuff was translated, because we have a lot of other teams that are working with us, right? We have to have it ready so that cutscene team and sound team and QA, who are somewhere in this audience, I think, yeah,
There they are.
QA can do their thing. So it ends up being, when we translate the voice script, which is mostly what I will just talk about today, because otherwise we'll be here till we die. When we translate the voice script, it usually takes about 3 months for an expansion. That's about the amount of time we have to prepare all of that.
That's not very much.
It did end up taking a little bit over 4, maybe 4.5, because, whoa, that was big.
How long did it take Dostoevsky to write Crime and Punishment?
I don't know. We
Probably
should-
more than 4 months.
Probably more, yeah.
Yeah, well.
Ishikawa's better.
We win.
Well, Ishikawa-san had to write it first. Like, how is
Yes.
she alive? Yeah, one thing I notice is a lot of people seem to be under the impression that either Koji or now I do all of the main scenario translation by ourselves. And I'm here to tell you, if we did that, we would be dead.
Yes.
With Endwalker, we also had a little bit of added pressure. Of course, we always want to do the best that we can with translation to make you guys, to communicate the story to you guys and give you guys the best experience possible. But with Endwalker, of course, it was this conclusion to this epic tale, and we were freaking out. Like, all of the devs were like, okay, this has to be perfect, this has to be perfect. So we also had this extra consideration of, we cannot let there be any quality issues here. We cannot let there be any translation issues that will affect your overall understanding of the story. And furthermore, you know, I'm talking a lot about main scenario, but we always have to be aware that there is other text in the game.
All the
In fact,
side
the main scenario is
quests.
about, like, at best, like, maybe a third of the amount of text in an expansion. And if you forget that,
Third.
you will end up in a Thal's balls situation. Koji, would you like to tell us about what you did?
About what I did?
He's going to explain it?
Okay. So, yeah, when you create a game, you have to submit it to the ESRB. Ratings 0, you have to release it to PEGI in Europe, and you have to do, they want you to submit this very, very early. But our translation schedule usually happens where it's like we're translating right up to the end, which means when it comes to, okay, now you have to submit this to get your rating, the text is not done. But the ESRB needs to see something. So we need to put something in there. And so what do? I just made all the text Thal's balls and hoped that the ESRB wouldn't notice. And we got our rating. T for teen.
We did. I was actually, that was when I was in QA and I was part of the ratings team, and I saw, like, we saw this and it was like, still not the weirdest thing I've seen here. It
not the
out,
weirdest?
But this kind of thing does semi-frequently happen because as much as we try, we do spend a lot of effort on the main scenario, and then we always end up rushing somehow. There was an interesting time in Shadowbringers when we had to submit for PEGI, but the main scenario had not been written until very close to the deadline. So we ended up translating it. I translated, like, I don't want to know how much. We translated a large amount in about 3 days. Basically by just spewing the first thing that came into our minds into the text box. And that is how we all got the player dialogue option of, might die, but Like, I wrote that, like, stream of consciousness, and then I was going back through later to edit it and, you know, make everything actually make sense. And I was like, no, you know what?
Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
They sound like they don't get a lot of sleep.
We do have a question here that is sort of related. I tried to weave in a few player questions so we could at least get to a few of them. So this is related to basically the volume of text that we handle in some ways. So one player asked, I've noticed that some of the more stylized English localization choices, like some of our very old speak sort of you must needs type of stuff, have been sort of trimmed down and made a little bit more accessible. And I think that was a choice that came about around Stormblood, Koji?
Yeah, it was kind of like, you know, we had big aspirations when we first started out, and we wanted to make it something that was very language heavy. We wanted to just go all out. We wanted to do something different that no other MMOs are wanting to do. And I mean, you know, now that I look back at it, maybe we kind of went just a little bit overboard on some of those, especially Limsa Lominsa, pirate speak. And also Urianger.
Oh god, Urianger is awful.
But the thing is, back then, again, there was less text. And so, you know, a character, Urianger, back in the 1.x times, it's just this crazy guy, you know, wearing a placard saying, the end is nigh. And it's like, okay, he's not going to have many lines. He's going to be gone. Yeah, we can go all out on this guy. Yeah, sure, we're going to go super, you know, difficult language, thinking that he's literally going to be gone at the end of 1.x. And lo, Urianger is now all over the fucking place.
They created their own curse.
I know. Did anyone expect that? It was like, meteor is coming, the world is ending. Pineapple, yeah. So, but the thing is that as we get more and more Urianger quests, we kind of realize that there's no way that we can sustain this. Because again, we want to put our all into it. We want to make it perfect. But there's just so much of it, and there's so much other text as well that we had to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? We want to keep that essence of Urianger, but we want to be able to actually go home and sleep at night. So we decided to, again, kind of switch things to make them a little bit more accessible. I think there's still a lot of the original Urianger there. But
I mean, yeah, I mean, he himself,
I think
it's
this is a
fine.
very
I mean,
good
it's
move.
Not fine sometimes when it's like 11 p.m. and I have to think about Elizabethan English. But, you know, he himself is fine. It's just if everyone talks like that, we have sort of a concern that you're going to get tired reading it.
that too.
Writing it certainly takes longer. It's less efficient. And it's a bit harder to quality check as well. So we kind of did that to streamline the process so we could sustain the quality going forward. And also an additional note from my time in QA, I distinctly remember, since you mentioned Limsa, I distinctly remember I had that 14 Nom Nom comic that where like the Lalafell is talking to Badera and he's talking in like weird pirate speak, and she goes, "Are you having a stroke?" Like, I had that pinned to my desk for at least a year.
Yes.
Oh, this is great.
Okay,
This is
so
hilarious.
let's talk about what the translation process actually entails. I'm not sure we've ever talked about this before. We sometimes talk about little bits and pieces, like I did with Ishikawa-san's panel yesterday. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how the process works and how we get through all of it in this amount of time, and how we try our very best to keep everything high quality so you guys can enjoy it. So first, at the beginning of an expansion, we have to decide who is doing what. And our team is actually bigger than you probably expect. So as I mentioned, we have 2 leads. We also have maybe 2 editors, except we had 1 in Endwalker because
Only
Koji
one?
stole Morgan for his little side project called FF16.
I'm sorry.
Thanks a lot. Everything bad that
FF16
happens
took
to me
the
is your fault.
resources.
We also have a team of core translators that have been on the game for a really long time, like think the entire time. And we do have some newer folks that we've then brought in to train up to do that. And then during expansions, we often borrow other translators from the company who know what they're doing as translators, but are maybe not as familiar with literally 10 years worth of 14 lore. So when we're talking about translating the scenario, we usually rely on our core translators. Because as you will see, the leads are doing a lot of other stuff other than main scenario, so it actually is not us that is translating a lot of the main scenario. And I think it was largely like that in your time as well.
Yeah. Again, it's with each expansion, you decide who's going to do what, and you try to follow that. And there's always going to have to be people coming in to help, but you can't expect them to know all of that knowledge. And so it falls on the leads and the people that have been there the longest to basically check that stuff that comes in and make sure everything is at that straight line. So it's a lot more work for the leads.
Yes, yes it is. So yeah, all right. So once we've decided who's doing what, we're going to read the plot summaries that the dev team kindly provides to us. They are usually quite long. Like those in themselves are kind of a novel, and I'm just, how does everyone on this project not have horrible tendinitis? So once we get those, we then all come together as a team, not just the English team, but the other localization teams for French and German, to discuss these plots. And we try to pull out things that we particularly want to focus on, we're particularly worried about. We discuss things like, what are we going to call stuff? So some of the things we were really focused on in Endwalker were like, for instance, of course, this is the end of the Heidelin and Zodiac plot. So we really wanted to make sure that the story we were telling was accurate to how the devs wanted this story to end. So this means that we did end up with a lot of questions for Ishikawa-san about, like, how do you want Heidelin to be portrayed? You know, we've had this shocking reveal in a previous patch that she's sort of a primal. And now we have Zodiac showing up, so we wanted to know exactly how she should come across to the player. That sort of thing is something we will then take up and present to the devs in like a huge pile of questions that they then have to sort through. And then we will talk about things like voice casting. Like obviously in 6.0, a big thing was Thavnair. Like, how are we going to portray this? Can we get the right actors? Who are from the right backgrounds, because obviously we don't want to have a Simpsons Apu situation when we're trying to portray someone speaking with an accent.
Good on them. Good on them for doing that.
Of course, the Hermes Amon Fandaniel conundrum. This was very important to talk about in advance because literally trying to explain this to a voice actor, like imagine this for a minute. Be like, first you were a guy like a million billion years ago, but not a normal human, like a super special human with super special depression.
Super special animal with depression?
That's the official term.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then in this next scene, you're like a guy who was like actually some Asian guy, but then he got body snatched, and now he's sort of an immortal guy who's trying to end the world. Don't worry about it. Be wacky. It's great. And then you have this other third guy who's like wearing a very fancy hat and like neck ruff. And you just look at that and I guess try to figure out what to do with it. It was complicated. So first we tried to all discuss it and figure out what's going on so we can then correctly portray that when we're explaining it to the voice actors. And finally, this is when we decide what kind of terminology we're using. So this is when we decided, okay, it's going to be the beasts of the final days, because that's the theme the devs really want to play on. But for the really big ones, the first one that shows up in every area and freaks everyone out, this is when we decided to call it blasphemies, because they first appear in Razat Han. And the Hanish have this sort of concept of, okay, this is some very corrupt version of our divinities, so we've called them blasphemies, and then that catches on everywhere, and then we have a consistent term that hopefully you were able to follow. I know it does get a little bit confusing. Woo, confusion!
Confusion!
So then we get on to the proper translation bit, and this is the part that people tend to ask us about, right?
Yeah.
People always want to know, like, what is your translation philosophy? I think there is sort of an idea that we are sitting there and sort of ruminating at length, which we sometimes do, though, I mean, due to the volume, we can't always spend as much time as you're probably imagining. We are not, despite the common perception, we are not just sitting there all day like, what's a pun that I could do? No, those puns just come out. Like, if you see a pun, that was some person's first thought. So, like, it is a mess up here. But on the more serious subject of the main scenario voice script, which is, again, the most prominent and important stuff in the game, I try to think about translation as something where you are looking at the text in multiple levels. And so the important part is not necessarily
Oh my goodness.
the words.
This is so good.
It is, but you're also thinking about how the words have a function within the text, right? No word just exists in a vacuum. There's a way we tend to use it as part of our culture. There's a way it's functioning in the scene to create things like imagery. And it's creating, when you put all the words together, they are creating an emotional experience. And you have to understand what that experience is going to be for the Japanese audience and what it's meant to be before you can even start to think about how would this be communicated in English. I mean, often
AKA
people think that translation
slang.
is more a process of you just have this sentence full of words and you take one at a time and you replace them with the closest thing you can find. But that's really not the case, because if you were to do that, you would lose all these other levels. You would lose, their actual meaning in terms of how they're functioning in the overall work. So when we look at these things, we want to be looking at, this is where this entire expansion is going to take us. And then we're going to translate accordingly. Of course, when you have this many levels of things, like you have your words, you have your imagery, you have your scenes, you have your character arcs, and then you have your overall story arcs, and then you have your like tiny little nuances, there is always something that is going to be different between languages. And you have to, and I know that can be a little bit difficult to accept, like, oh, I'm never going to experience this the same way as the Japanese audience.
Get over
but
it.
on the other hand, you're never going to experience it the same way as the person sitting next to you, right? We all bring our own stuff to the work that we are experiencing. And so, yeah, in that case, you sort of have to decide for yourself, like, what your balance is going to be. And I try to pick out, these are the most important things. These are the things we cannot afford to lose in this story, in this scene, and in terms of what language is being used in the Japanese. And then from there, I sort of build out into something that I think will give you the same emotional experience that the Japanese audience is having. So if I'm crying while I'm translating, which is a frequent occurrence, I want to make sure that the end product will also make you cry.
Okay, dang girl, breathe. Breathe. Take a break. Take a break and breathe.
Yeah, I mean, based on the signing session I did with Ishikawa-san, I think we were successful. Everyone was like, I cried. And I'm like, me too, yeah. So yeah, but of course, a lot of this is personal interpretation, and that is just a fact of what translation is. You are always going to be subject to the interpretation of the person that's translating it, because there is no other way to do it. However, that doesn't mean like I just want this all to be my own interpretation 100% right, which is why we all discuss it as a team. we try to find something that is close enough to how the Japanese audience is going to be experiencing it from all of our perspectives, so that we can kind of have an even and consistent experience that we can translate to you. And during that process, a lot of what we do is asking questions to the devs. We are very fortunate on this project. Most translators do not get this kind of access to the person writing their original stuff that they're translating.
Oh, that's a good point.
So we do just spend a lot of time going back and forth with the devs, sometimes asking like weirdly detailed questions. And I do think I asked about that Heidelin thing like 4 different times. Like, how do you want Heidelin to come off here? How do you want Heidelin to come off here? And sometimes I feel like they're probably thinking like, what are they talking about? Like, why are they even confused about this point? It's not necessarily that we're confused, it's that we really want to get to the heart of what they're trying to say so that we can then share that with you.
Very passionate about their translating. It's great. It's great for the game, right? The game would not be as good if we didn't have our English translation team doing their absolute best to get the vision across.
So I'll just briefly go over the rest of the steps. So, once you've found your balance, you've come up with something that you think will communicate what is trying to be said in the writer's heart, right? Then we get to the point where we're trying to ensure consistency because, again, these are very big stories and we cannot have one person translating the entire thing. That would be nice for consistency, but we cannot do it. So once we're done with our own
that
sections,
person's life would
we will self-check.
suck.
We will make sure that the lines, of
If it's
course,
just
fit
one
the time
person,
sinks
that'd
of
be
the cutscenes,
awful.
because otherwise we would be in a whole big problem. We want to make sure it fits the motion so nothing looks too out of place, and that it sounds good so that when we take it to record, it will sound fine and not totally like, I just wrote this and no one ever speaks like this, but now it's being spoken aloud and it's really noticeable. And then we'll have another translator cross-check it against the Japanese to make sure everything is accurate and everything is working. And then we will have an editor come in and edit it. And that person usually does not look so much at the Japanese. They read it through as a player would and try to understand, like, this is the experience we're getting from it. Is anything super confusing? Does anything sound terrible? And they usually, like, punch up the wording a bit. Or a lot, in some cases.
Or a lot.
Our editors are very, very good. For instance, I know Ishikawa-san mentioned the Tales from the Shadows era curtain falls yesterday. And Emmett Selk's soliloquy at the end there that is all in iambic pentameter. I wrote it a little bit poetically to begin with, and then I gave it to our editor, and I was like, can you make this into iambic pentameter? And he did. So that's the level they are on.
Sweet.
Yes.
I did
So
love
Rushton and
his
John
little
Crow,
soliloquy.
everybody.
That stuff was awesome.
And of course, throughout this whole process, which looks something like this, each color is a different person. So we have it broken up into different translators, cross-checkers, and editors.
My gosh.
And throughout this whole process, the Japanese team is also doing something similar. So they are checking.
That
It's
poor
like they will write
editor.
it, and then, for instance, the lore team will check it, and then maybe Ishikawa-san, of course, in 6.0, she was the one writing, but another writer will check it, and then Yoshi P will check it. So these checks are going on as we are translating, and so every day is just terror about when the revisions are going to come in, and we're going to have to redo everything we've done thus far.
Yes. And that happens
Yeah.
pretty much every time.
Yes.
You'll get, okay, yeah, this is done. Here you go, translators, it's ready to go. It's 100% finished. And we're like, is it 100% finished? Like, it's not going to change. Okay, and we translate. 2 weeks later, okay, Yoshi P did his check, and we've rewritten the whole thing. Start again. But it's always better for that.
It
But
is.
on
Like,
the
you
other-
can't complain
yes, you
about
can't
it too
complain
much
about
because
it
we do the same
because,
thing,
yeah.
and it does get better.
It does get better.
It's just,
Yeah.
Oh, they sound so tired.
and then just to wrap up the voice recording process, that we will then prepare scripts and reference materials for the studio. We'll talk to our director. We will attend recordings to make sure that everything is accurate to the script, and sometimes to rewrite lines if it turns out they don't actually fit the timings despite our best efforts. I did rewrite several bits of Heidelin's last monologue in the studio because that entire thing had to be specifically timed. And it was really hard to come up with something that the voice actor could say naturally and fit the timing. So I rewrote a lot of that in the studio. And then we will...
This is good.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, guys. Oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness.
And then once we get everything back from the studio, we will check every single audio file to make sure there's nothing, like there's no like horrible scratching sound in the middle or something like that. And then we will check everything in the cutscene to make sure it all looks natural. And if it doesn't, we will ask the cutscene team, hey, look, the English is coming off really weird here. Can you please tweak this animation so that it works better for all languages? And that is another thing, yet another thing that we do with French and German team. And we will often compare our audio, which is really quite fun. It's very different between languages, but because of just how differently you would portray like a character in different languages, archetype-wise. But it's really nice. Like, it's really nice to do that. And, you know, everyone's running to each other like, listen to this really cool line that I got.
And of course, there's also, again, it's not here, but there's also the conundrum of the dragon language that we have.
Oh, no, yeah.
And so yeah, that's not taken in each language. There's only one source, and we do that in the English.
Yes.
And the English voice actor will do the draconian lines, and then they're used in all the languages. Of course, because it is a crazy language that no one in the world speaks, to get voice actors to be able to do that, we need a guide. And so a lot of times it's,
goodness.
yeah, I have to do a voice recording of...
Literally only Koji understands dragon language. Like, we do.
And so whether I'm on 14, even after 14, and I had kind of shifted over to 16, and I'm still looking at 14 stuff, but I'm doing a lot of 16 stuff. Okay, it's like, we have a bunch of dragon lines this patch. Can you do those? And so I'll do them, and then they're like, yeah, this is nice translation, but we're going to need like a voice sample as well.
Well, because that's the hardest part, right? Like, we did have someone who learned the dragon grammar, and like, I can kind of
Yes.
work it out. But what you need is like, have you seen how many H's and stuff are in that? Like, so basically, we
They're
have to call Koji so
everywhere.
he can come in and like get a little voice recorder and be like, awesomeness,
So
and you're like,
that is, I do. So we have like our, you know, our floor, and you got all the devs, and then I go into a one of those meeting rooms that they have on the
Yeah.
sides, and then it's just for like 2 hours. I'm like, and like every now and then you're gonna see like a dev walk by, and they'll kind of stop and like look in the blinds. It's like, what's going on in there? And then they take all of those audio files and then take them to the professional voice actors and like, okay, listen to this.
yeah, you
Okay,
give it to the voice
do
actors,
that.
and they're like, excuse me?
And
Oh
then
my
like, was that good?
God.
That was perfect.
And then we get them back, and this kind of happened with a recent patch, and Ishikawa-san was like, does this sound weird? Like, does the processing on this sound weird? Is the pacing weird? And we're like, is it? So then we had to call Koji again and be like,
And this is perfect.
yeah.
But yeah.
So
Like,
yeah,
no,
there's a
no,
lot of
it's not
different
weird.
things that goes into making it, especially the voice part of the main scenario. But you know, once we're done with all that, we can rest a little bit. No, we can't. What the heck are you talking about? There's still half of a script to finish. We have to do the unvoiced script after we've done the voice script, and then all the rest of the text in the game. So as you can see, I guess my main point
I
here,
hope
though, is
they're
that it
paid
takes a
well.
lot of people to get this done. Like, even when Koji is not technically on the project, he's helping out. You saw my chart of like how many people are involved in just doing the translation. It is a big team effort, and we are all working very hard to get it done properly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work. We love you. I'm so happy this game is in English and I can play it.
So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the other large, massive half of my job, which is doing the lore stuff. And to kick us off, I really wanted to ask, so all of
Voices of our
the scenario
star.
team contributes to the lore in their way, right? There are a select few people who are part of the world lore team. And those folks are the main people in charge of like figuring out, okay, what is our linguistic theme for this area? How are we going to handle this and that? What are the names going to be? But of course, in the process of writing the main scenario, the lore tends to change, get adjusted, and refined. So it's really all of the writers that are working together to come up with it. But I thought I would ask Oda-san, who is the guy who is in charge of remembering all of this somehow, how they get started creating the lore for each area. So this is what he had to say. So they always start with a core concept. And from that, then you can build out like the rest of your stuff. And these core concepts always balance real-life influence with fantasy. That's kind of the FF14 style. So, for instance, in the case of Garlemald, the theme was mechanized Roman Empire. That's why you see a lot of Latin, and of course, because they're an empire, they tend a little bit
I can
towards
see
the,
it.
grim, and they have all of these machina that we have to name. But also an interesting point that we added more recently is because we've decided, Garlemald is this like really, really snowy place. He thought it would make sense to have some Russian culinary influences, and that's how you get some of those nice eating scenes in 6.0. Yes. And the most important considerations when they're designing the lore is how to make these influences fit into the world of 14. Like Oda-san wanted to emphasize that it's really important that what we're trying to do is we're not trying to recreate reality. We are trying to imagine a world with perhaps similar locations, but still fitting the history of FF14. But, at the same time, when we do draw on real-life cultures and languages, we want to develop an understanding and a respect for those cultures, and we want to try to demonstrate that the best we can. Yeah.
Yay, you guys are doing great. You guys are doing great. I love seeing all the cultural influences.
This is a real point of focus for 7.0. I can't say much about it, but I will say that is something the team is very aware of. They're aware that we have not always made our goal of demonstrating the proper respect for cultures in the past.
Oh, wow.
As a game and as a franchise, and we are really working on it.
I can't believe they actually said that. Good for them. I'm working on it. I know a lot of people don't like the New World attire or that Mog Station outfit that was added not too long ago.
Thank you.
So I don't think they can really affect that too
so
much, though, because that's
really
in the game from the Japanese side, not a translation issue.
So I wanted to give an example of how we use names in different locations to sort of build out this lore and this core concept of each area. So first I wanted to take a look at Thavner. As you know, Thavner is a multicultural society. We have the Arkasodara, we have the Ora, and we have the Hures, who both settled in the area. But they all made peace with each other. So now it's this very, nice concept of a world where, a country where everyone has come together, and while still maintaining their diverse heritages, they all work together and have created a unified nation.
It's a melting pot a little bit.
We wanted to maintain different linguistic influence as well to show that, no, those cultures are still there. Even though Thavner is a melting pot, it wasn't that one culture overwrote all the others. They've really all come together to create this society. So that's how you get some names that are based on Ottoman Turkish, because one of our key inspirations for this area was sort of the time of the Ottoman Empire, which had a lot of linguistic mixing between Turkish and Arabic, a lot of different cultures coming together. So that's why some of these names, and particularly the names related to the societies that came later than the Arkasodara, those are more Ottoman Turkish themed. They're not directly from Ottoman Turkish, but that was an influence. And then we have these names that are directly Sanskrit. And as in the real world, the Sanskrit names are still used in the religion of the area. So this was sort of a traditional language of the Arkasodara, and I imagine they still speak a version of it today, but this old version is still used for religious terms. And actually, Khadga, I can't pronounce it. I'm extremely white. I'm sorry.
You say that every single time I mispronounce something. I'm just going to be like, I'm extremely white.
Thavnerian context, but you'll have to check the lore book to see what it is, because I'm not telling you.
Yeah, they got a new lore book coming out.
And of course, Thavner is a society that has had a lot of trade, and they've had a lot of people coming through, so they all speak the common tongue. So they're very comfortable mixing their own more heritage languages with the common tongue, which is AKA English. And this also comes up with distinct names for NPCs as well. So on the more Ottoman Turkish side, we have these. To develop these sort of names, I actually looked at records of names from the Ottoman Empire and tried to find some distinctive sounds that would sort of convey this theme and also fit in with the legacy names we were using from FF11, which is a concern always.
Really?
So then I
Okay.
took them and I came up with these word parts that
I've
you can
never played
always use
11.
to create names that will sound sort of Hannish. But I got a little carried away because this was my first time doing NPC names, so I gave every single one of them a meaning. I was looking up some, naming stuff about Turkish names, and I thought it was really cool how some of them
Oh,
have
it's
more poetic
adorable.
meanings. So I came up with names for everybody with meanings, and that's what those are. On the other side, the devs came up with the idea for the Arkasodra, who have much simpler names, and this is like
Fish.
on the nose for Matsya, let me tell you.
Oh, there's Matsya that we're going to do the next variant
so like,
dungeon
like
with.
many cultures in real life, the Arkasodra are drawing from what is important to them when they create their own names, and these are like important things from the world around them. And one thing I thought that was cool about this in the 14 context is you get personal names like Xiroda, probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's also a location name, and it's a person's name. So it's really showing the fact that the Arkasodra have been in this land for a long time, and this is their home. And of course, in English, we also tried to express this a bit through varied accents. Because this is a fantasy world, we really wanted to imagine a place where even if you're speaking English, you're not beholden to like what people think the correct pronunciation is. Like this is an issue in Britain, this is an issue in America. If you have what's considered to be a non-standard pronunciation, you're often judged for that. But that is not the case in Thavnair. We do have a variety of what you might call accents in Thavnair, but to the Hannish, the way that they all speak is the correct way to speak the common tongue. There is no one better way to speak it. So, yeah, that's that one.
That's nice.
A slightly more complicated example where we were doing something completely different would be Elpis, which I'm told you guys all liked.
Oh, I love Elpis. It's wonderful. It's the best place. My favorite
these
zone.
ones are, of course, in ancient Greek. But they are made up. Usually when I use ancient Greek, I try to stick to like attested words and phrases. But in this case, Elpis is a place of creation. It's a place where the ancients probably wanted to get a little poetic. And in the devs' imagining, the ancients are also interested in this sort of like drama, sort of theatrical stuff from, like, as you might imagine, from ancient Greece. So a lot of these names are more poetic. I'll just show you them. They're really complicated. But yeah, like one idea that we'll call her S-san from the scenario team came up with. She requested to be a spy today.
Okay.
Yes. But the idea that she came up with is that each of Elpis's like 4 main regions would be themed after a wind, but also after something from theater.
Okay.
Like a different theatrical emotional experience. And she used these Japanese concepts for that, which I then translated into ancient Greek. So these are all Homeric epithets expressing different emotional theater-going experiences. And I didn't think any of you would get that, but I hoped it would at least sound fancy and like, ooh, the ancients were like really on top of their stuff.
Yeah, man, way over my head,
Good
but
idea.
it's awesome to hear about these details of like how much
Of course,
thought
there
they
are
put
also
into
some more
it.
normal names because we always give you something so that you don't get totally lost. But of course, Elpis was not the only place that had Greek. Charlian also has Greek.
Yeah.
And why did you do that to me?
That,
Do you know how much Greek I know now?
I mean, you could think of it as a kind of growing experience. I planted the seed that grew into. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. Again, it
No
was one
more
of those things
excuses.
Where it's just like, oh yeah, Ishgard. We have this little place. Yeah, Charlian. Some goblins are living there now. It'd be fun to use ancient Greek. Yeah, we're never going to use this again. You're starting to see a theme here, aren't you? All of my decisions are now.
My problem.
I'm going to sit kind of over here. Not, so.
I'll protect you.
So when we decided to go to Old Charlian, I thought I needed to make this distinct from Elpis in some way, right? So just a little bit of an example here is the Charlians are some way more casual about their Greek use. Like in Elpis, it's all very, like if a name has ancient Greek in it, it is fully ancient Greek. Like that is what's happening because that was their language. Charlian are more scholars, right? So they are sort of very into Greek, but it's not necessarily their native way of speaking. And much like in the real world, they have developed a sort of Roman-style, Latin-style alphabet by which to express this, but they're not always super consistent about it. Like if you look at some of the spellings in Labyrinthos, you know, sometimes there's a C, sometimes there's a K, and I'm 100% sure that the scholars who came up with those respective names are still fighting to this day about how things should be spelled.
Love it so much.
Good way to cover your ass on that one.
Hey, it was totally on purpose. Do you know how hard it was to come up with this idea? Okay.
Totally on purpose. No one believes you.
So, let's move on a little bit to our activity. Because obviously when you
Oh,
talk
we
about
get an
the world
activity.
lore, it's not just places, it's not just people, it's every single thing you get, like the items, and of course, the fish. So we're going to skip over these little facts. Okay, no, I'll do the fun facts. I'll do the fun facts. Really fast.
Really fast.
Really fast. Okay, places. Mare Lamentorum, all the names came from Garleans observing it, so that's why they are Latin and depressing. Besway's is all the names were come up with by the Loporrit, so they're a little confused, but they got the spirit. If you'd like to know more about the big cheese, check out the lore book again. Ultimate
Pushing that
Fool,
lore
of course,
book,
from
huh?
all the names there, you will get some mad despair vibes. But there's also some interesting stuff. So like the Omicron unit names were designed to resemble astronomical catalogs in real life. I don't know if anyone picked up on that, but I thought it was cool. And then we did have one consequence of, like I said, usually we try to talk to not just English, but German and French. But we were in a bit of a rush producing more dragon names for Ultima Thule. And this was, again, Koji's fault. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
We asked him to give us more dragon names. He did not check those with German and French. I didn't realize he didn't check them with German and French, so it's half my bad. And then we end up with a dragon whose name means cabbage in German.
I mean,
The cabbage
is
dragon.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's in there now. We're not changing it. Like,
yeah.
sorry, Germany, but also you're welcome.
Oh, did they meme about it in Germany? They should have memed about it if they
Now I remember
didn't.
So our activity today is fish related. So I thought I would
Fish.
ask my partner in fish crime, who actually comes up with all the background lore. I get a lot of compliments on the fish text, and like, thank you. I do work really hard on rendering it into English, but a lot of the like real weirdness in there comes from the Japanese. So big thank you to S-san as well. So I asked her for a few little bits of info about how we come up with the fish lore. So first, we do get the fish themselves from the non-combat content team. There are some folks over there who just like know all the fish, which is good because there's like millions of fish, and I certainly can't remember what fish we've used
There's
already.
like 1,300 fish in Final Fantasy
She will
14.
then name the fish,
Something like
and I
that.
name the fish, and then she will write the descriptions. And they often use real-world fish facts. So we had a question about when do you use real-world fish facts versus when do you use fantasy fish facts. And usually if it's a fish that's showing up for the first time, you'll get your real-world facts because the lore team really wants to sort of give us a point of connection between the real world and our fantasy world so that you can be more and more immersed in the game by having these sort of like realistic touches. And also, because we're learning about these fish, we also want you to learn about these fish. And that is the case with a lot of lore in the game, I think. Like if we're researching something culturally, it's like, that's really cool and I want people to know about it, and I'm kind of hoping they'll like Google this afterwards. So that happens frequently. But for fantastical fish, usually the case is either A, we don't have any more fish facts. Reality does not have this many fish facts. I'm sorry, we're just going to have to make something up. Or we do really want to communicate some extra lore about a place or something else, but we couldn't fit it anywhere else. So the fish seemed like an opportune area.
Throw the lore in the
And
fish.
Esson told
Oh my
me
goodness.
that often when she's writing so many fish descriptions, because you know there are many, many fish per patch, and especially in an expansion, you can have like 200 fish. And she says, so she's often just spending like 2 weeks at a time just writing fish and weeping. And she will often go get sushi for lunch and eat it while thinking, yeah, that's right, I got you. And at the bottom, you can see some of Essan's favorite fish here. I highly agree with the Greater Serpent of Ronka.
That one is a bitch to get in the game. I hate it.
And
I don't
also
think I've
agree
got
with all
it.
the fish in Ultima Thule. Like, those rule. Like, they're so weird. Okay, activity.
10 minutes. 10 minutes?
Okay, we are going to describe a fish.
Oh.
This is what happened last time.
So yeah, for those of you remember the last Physical Fan Fest, we decided to just make a fish here up on stage, and this is what happened. We kind of went overboard, but we're going to do that again, and I think we're going to go overboard again, aren't we?
There's no board but overboard. Oh, except
Yes.
for larboard and starboard.
Let's not talk about larboard and starboard.
Yes,
Overboard
thank
today.
you, English team.
Okay. So I got a few facts from the team. First of all, we had the non-combat content team give us a fish to work on, and then I asked Oda-san for some facts. So, our fish today lives in a lake high up in the mountainous Urkopacha, which we introduced yesterday in the keynote. Legend has it that these lakes in this area were once part of the sea, and perhaps up high in the mountains, yes. And at that time, that being the case, they are very salty.
Salty fish?
Salty
Fun.
lakes. This fish may
Fun.
also be salty.
Well,
I
if
don't
anything in
know.
a salty lake has to be a salty fish.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe.
Maybe.
Yes, not maybe.
It looks like this. It's this
Oh
guy.
my
It's this
gosh.
Ah.
Ah,
The dev team has been waiting to implement this fish for ages.
ah.
They wanted to put it in a previous patch, but they weren't able to, and so they were
Oh
like,
my
what about
gosh.
this fish? And I was like, I love it.
It looks
Let's do it.
ridiculous.
So we're going to ask you guys to come up with some ideas. I'm going to ask a few questions. We're going to have maybe 2 people answer each question. Then we're going to have you, after each question, cheer for which answer you like better. And then we will put together our little fish facts, and I will write it all into a text and post it on the lodestone later. Yeah.
All right, so lots of pressure, guys.
No pressure.
No pressure.
All
Here we go.
right, go.
What is the first question?
What is the strangest fact about this fish?
Okay. So, do we have people out with mics?
We do have people out.
We got a couple people out with mics.
Operate.
So, if you want to have a great answer to this, just raise your hand. One of our guys will grab you. You say what you want, and then we'll vote on it later. Let's do it. So first
Strangest
off,
fact is it
what's
has
the
googly
strangest
eyes.
fact about it?
Googly eyes.
All right, Tony.
The strangest fact is that it probably has feet.
It has feet.
Probably.
Probably. You just can't see them, but it probably has feet. Okay, so number
I mean,
one,
we could add feet.
it probably
they
has
specifically
feet.
told me they would.
All right. And
That's-
now a second idea. Do we have somebody?
I think yes, we do somewhere.
It can only swim in the left direction.
What?
It can only swim in the left direction.
It can only swim in the left direction.
Oh my God.
I told you we're not talking about larboard. Okay, yes, we are.
Larbird, you say? Okay. So
Oh
we
my
have 2
gosh.
options for this fact.
We want you to cheer for A or B. A is?
A is has feet, probably.
And B.
B, it can only swim in the left direction.
Oh, that one won. That one. The left direction
A
is
it
better
is.
than feet,
Hey!
100%.
Okay, B it is. It can only
All
swim in the
right.
left.
This
What's the
is
next
a
question?
left swimming fish. I am going to write larboard. Like, don't test me. Okay. Next up. So what would a local person say about it?
Hands up.
And I want to review a little bit of facts from the keynote. We know that in Urkopacha, we have a very small race, the Pelu Pelu, who are very
This feet.
into trading and making beverages and riding alpacas. And we also have a gigantic race that we don't really know anything about, but once ruled the area, though no longer. So those are your options for your local people that might say something about this fish.
Okay.
I would say it usually eats
up.
the pelu pelu.
It tastes like peanut butter.
All right,
Okay.
I feel like that is a Pelu Pelu advertisement.
Yes. Option A, it tastes like peanut butter.
Butter.
Option B, what do you got next?
I was going to say they believe it's the top of its food chain.
I mean, that is an apex predator. Look at it.
Which
So
option
what
is
you're
better? I think I
saying
like
is
B.
If it's at the top, then it means it eats lalafels.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes. Yes, it eats the lalafels.
All right, we have a tough choice. We're going to go with A, tastes like peanut butter, B, top of the food chain. A, tastes like peanut butter.
Oh, B's
B,
gonna win.
top of the food chain.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
All right,
Woo.
and there we have it. All right, third question.
All right, our next one. Name that fish.
Oh boy, we'll give you
You're
10
gonna
seconds.
have to, yeah. Think about it for a minute. Think about our facts so far. So what we know, it lives in a
All right, 10
salty
seconds.
lake.
Let's go.
No, I'm reviewing.
Hugger rump
Salty
fish.
lake. Orcopacha. Can only swim in the left direction. Top of the food chain. All right, what do we got?
Pudgy carp.
Pudgy carp.
Pudgy carp.
Koji carp?
Pudgy.
What?
Pudgy as in like fat.
Oh, pudgy. Pudgy
G.
carp? Pudgy carp. Pudgy carp. And option B?
Panko butter.
Pinko butter?
What?
What?
It's like panko crater, but it with butter. Oh God.
I still did not get the first half. I got butter.
I only heard butter.
Panko.
Oh my God. Panko butter.
Is it like a butterfish?
Oh, panko.
Panko butter.
We're living in Japan, and the A is pronounced slightly differently, and we are very confused. You want 2 names? Do we want 3 names? We want to get
Let's
a third
get like
name?
4 names, 2
4
more,
names,
because this is the
okay.
most important part.
It is the most important part.
So what do we have? We have pudgy
We
carp,
have pudgy carp. We have panko butter.
panko butter.
How about the all right, all right, all right?
The all right, all right, all right.
I think I know which one's gonna win.
We may have to shorten that in Japanese. I think if you wrote that in katakana, it might explode the game. All right.
All right, fourth up,
Derp swimmer.
derp swimmer.
Oh, that's
Derp
good.
swimmer.
Oh,
Much like this is our protagonist of the seas. Okay.
derp planter.
Okay, we now have 4 choices. We're gonna go A, B, C, D. A being
Pudgy carp.
pudgy carp, B being
Let's just do them one at a time. Okay. Pudgy carp, panko butter, all right, all right, all right, and derp swimmer.
all right.
Derp
here we go.
swimmer's
A,
got a win,
pudgy
man.
carp. All right.
Decent response.
B, panko butter.
Less of a
C,
response.
All right, all right, all right.
Oh, that's a good response.
And D,
Derp swimmer.
derp swimmer.
You know what? It's hard to tell
gonna
between
be
C and D.
tough.
Should we tie it between, do a tiebreaker between all right, and derp swimmer?
Yes.
We should just meld them together. Like,
Oh,
all right,
yeah.
derp swimmer, all right.
That's pretty good. All right, derp swimmer. All right.
Will do.
The crowd loves it.
Hate you.
They always cause problems on these panels.
All right, yes, Koji always causes problems. I will say, I think the all right one will actually be easier to put into Japanese.
Uh-huh.
So let's do this. Let's make all right the name. And then derp swimmer can be a nickname. And that will also go into the explanation along with your lovely left swimming facts.
Yes. We did it.
I would like the derp swimmer to be in the
Thank you
name,
so much.
personally.
Okay. So I did have eyes bigger than my stomach, and I'm not going to be able to answer people's questions.
But you will.
But we
But I
will.
will.
On the
Still will.
lodestone.
Don't worry.
So you will get a little bit of a teaser about what they are for right now as I
Okay.
scroll through. But please do check the lodestone because I will also put our fish result up on there. I'm going to say in about 2 weeks, Matt, because I'm coming back in Japan in like a week, and then maybe it takes like a week.
2 weeks or more.
I love.
We're so tired.
He has this very
Please.
neutral expression. I feel like on the inside he's just like, no.
We'll-
Okay.
we'll
It
do
will
our
be
best.
coming. It will be coming.
It will be coming.
All right, so here's some of the questions I'm going to answer. I had a question about the song lyrics for Memphina, which I wrote and enjoyed. I had a question about the souls in the cocktails fight. But I will share this right now. Our voice actors were Nigel and Emma, also Vritra and also playing Vritra and Reen respectively. So if you enjoyed those voices, and I certainly did, I loved that tier. Thank them.
Woo!
Oh
Yay!
yeah, we have a question about the Ryan's migration pattern over time, so you get that.
We will
We
get
had
that.
a question about the naming of Azazla.
Kosa!
Okay, and we will transition. We will go out with this last one. So, were there other nations and cultures present in the world unsundered outside of Amarat? Or was the entire world at the time a singular nation under the collective rulership of the Convocation of 14? And I actually got a lot of questions about the ancient world outside of Amarat and Elpis. But unfortunately, this is the only one that I could get even a partial answer to. So according to Oda-san, the Convocation of 14 represented all of mankind. And at least at the time of the Warrior of Light's visit to Elpis, the entire star was within their jurisdiction.
Okay.
There were a lot of other questions. I did pass all those on. I wanted to know more. Nah.
No.
I've had that same conversation with Oda-san
Oh yeah,
so many
all the
times.
time. So potentially this is a sign of things to come. I don't know. I can't guarantee we'll answer all of your questions, but if you do want a few more tantalizing tidbits, as well as more of the type of stuff from this panel,
Get the
fish
new book.
things.
Things,
A lot of
most
people want to
important.
know like how old NPCs are, which like good, I guess that's in there. Get that. Then yeah, if you want some more lore, please pre-order Encyclopedia Eorzea 3.
Yes.
Thank you. Koji has not even seen Encyclopedia Eorzea 3,
No, I have not yet.
so read
I'm
it to
getting
become
really
superior to Koji Fox.
God.
Finally.
Okay, and last but not least, the English team is hiring again, because we keep realizing we have a lot of work to do over and over. Somehow it's always a surprise. So if you have a little Japanese skill, please do apply with us using this fancy QR code. And that is it for the panel today. I apologize that we weren't
That's
able to get
cool.
through everything, but I hope you enjoyed some of it.
It was
Fish?
fun, right?
It was fun. It was very fun. I liked the fish thing.
Kate.
Thank you. And thank you, Koji. And thank you, Matt. I'm so sorry that
Sure.
we're making you sit out here while you're
It's
like
okay.
about to pass out.
No, it's fine. It's all fine.
You can do it. I believe in you.
I believe.
I'm kind of
All
surprised
right.
Matt was
And
there
thank you to
because
everyone for
he didn't
attending
really
today.
participate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank
Yay.
you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Thank you, thank you.
Hey,
That officially brings our Fan Festival main stage events to the closing for those on our live stream. So let's say goodbye to our live stream viewers. Bye. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you in October for our Fan Festival in Europe.
All right.
Stay tuned.
You're up.
oh, I'm gonna have to watch
And for
that.
everyone else here, get ready to rock because we will be having the Primals concert.
What?
Yeah, we didn't tell Koji. This is actually a surprise for him, so he has to go practice right now. But thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you back here soon. And those on the live stream, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in October. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am still salty that they didn't live stream the piano concert or the Primals concert. I'm so fucking salty about that. Anyway, that's it for Final Fantasy XIV FanFest Las Vegas 2023 live stream. So, it's over with, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. So, and I'd love to have the video get a like and subscribe to my channel. I would love it. And I also stream on Twitch if you want to watch me play Genshin and Honkai Star Rail and sometimes Final Fantasy. Not quite as often. But have a great evening, night, morning, whatever it is, wherever you are, and bye-bye.